It is 7 o'clock on July 21st, 2021, and I'm Maya Hasagawa. I'm going to chair this meeting of the Development Review Board. I'm going to ask that everyone who's on Zoom keep themselves muted until they're talking. And they get called on if people on Zoom can hear me.
Maya, it's Catherine. Is Brian doing this? Because I have this thing across my screen that says this meeting is being recorded. Is there any way he can delete that so I can see things?
I don't know. We've got the BCTV person.
She has to delete it.
Well,
there should be an X in the corner of her window.
I guess I don't know if he sees it on his monitor, but I've got it here, and I mean, that's fine. I can't see it.
You should just
Anybody
need
underneath
to.
it? Anybody underneath it? I have no idea who's under there.
Okay.
Try hitting the continue button.
You can delete it yourself.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
I don't like to press buttons unless somebody tells me to.
Okay. Hi, Chris. Okay, I'm going to read the chair's opening remarks. At the DRB, we hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro and appeals of zoning administrator decisions. Procedurally, the Development Review Board operates on the record. Broadly, this means we take a clear record of testimony from the applicant and any interested parties, and then issue a written decision with our findings. Applicants and members of the public should be aware that as we are on the record, this is your opportunity to comment on and provide evidence relating to an application. In the event our decision is appealed to the environmental court, the court will not take or consider additional testimony at its hearing, but will look at the evidence from our hearing, the regulations, and determine if the evidence supports the finding and decision of this board. Only interested persons that participate in this proceeding may appeal a decision made by the board, so I strongly encourage all of you to speak up at this meeting. As we are on the record, I'm going to ask that you affirm your testimony will be truthful. Could anybody who's on Zoom who expects to testify, and that does not include Catherine or Dan, anybody else who expects to testify, please unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hello?
Yes, my name is John McKay.
Okay.
I didn't know what time you want me to call in. I'm out of town for the evening.
That's fine. We're doing the preliminaries right now, so if you're going to speak, you need to take the oath that I'm going to administer to everybody. If everybody that's here live will stand, please, and raise your right hand.
What I would like to do is just come to the next meeting. Is that possible?
Sir, you're out of order right now. Please just take the oath, okay?
Yes.
I hereby affirm that the evidence I give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
Thank you. People on Zoom who are going to testify and on the phone can please mute yourself again. Applicants require a majority vote of the full board to succeed. That's 4 votes out of 7, and we have 6 people that are participating tonight, 6 members of the board. If we do not have a full board present to hear your application, Then we will consider a request to continue your application to the next public meeting. But there's 6 of us, and we are down 1 appointed member. So I think that 6 is what you get right now. After taking testimony, the board will close the public hearing and may vote on your application. The board will issue a written decision within 45 days of the close of the hearing. While we may vote on an application, it is the written decision that controls the timeline for appeal. It should be noted that the town of Brattleboro is a party with an interest in land development applications. The town does not have a special status before this board. Documents provided to the board by the town planning department, town attorney, or other town departments will be considered in exactly the same way as information from the applicant and all other interested parties. Okay, I'm going to ask the board members to introduce themselves.
My name is John Sakosio.
Michael Averill.
Maya Hasagawa.
Nora Dissinger.
Catherine, you want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself?
Yeah,
That's Catherine Turnus.
here,
And Dan.
Hi, I'm Dan Handy.
Thank you. Okay. And I have a motion to approve the minutes of, what was it, June 6th? Was it June 16th?
Yes.
I would
You make
like to make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes of June 16th, please indicate by saying aye.
I
I,
Okay, that's 6-0. Okay, all interested persons took the oath. Brian, has the meeting been properly warned?
Yes, it has.
Does anybody have any conflict of interest or has engaged in any ex parte communications? Okay. All right, the first case on the agenda is 2021-56, Jeremy Bouchard, and he has requested to withdraw his application. So we don't need to take any action on that. Next, we will hear from the town of Brattleboro, case 2021-96, request for site plan and wetlands conditional use approval to demolish existing pump station and construct a town community facility, a water pump station. Who is presenting for the town?
Hi, I'm Chrissy Haskins. I'll be presenting for the town.
Okay, can you, please describe the project?
Yes. So I've prepared a summary of the existing conditions, the need for the project, and the proposed project. And then I know that there have already been some comments submitted, and I've prepared responses to those as well. But I'll go through my summary first, and then I'll see how the board wants to handle the comments. So the existing conditions, and Brian does have a slideshow, a photo slideshow to go along with the summary. So I don't know if he's getting that ready now or.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so this is for the Signal Hill Pump Station. It's a water pump station owned by the Town of Brattleboro. And it serves approximately 14 residential customers on Hillcrest Terrace and Signal Hill Road. The existing pump station structure, you can see in this photo here, is a small concrete vault. It's partially buried with an above grade roof structure. It's approximately 6.5 feet wide by 8.5 feet long. And as you can see in the photo, the structure is not very tall above grade and is clearly a buried structure. It's a concrete block vault. It extends about 5 to 6 feet below grade. There is an electrical panel on the adjacent pole that contains the electrical service for the station. You can see that in that photo, right in the center of that photo there. On the next photo, you can see how the structure is accessed. The access to this structure, there are no doors on it. The access is made by dismantling the roof and actually hinging the roof up. Once the roof is opened, an operator would climb down a ladder into the vault to access the equipment. On the next photos, you can see inside the vault. I apologize, they're not great photos, but you can see the floor of the vault in here on this photo. This is the piping that comes in, runs through the vault and goes out on the other side. And you can see how the floor of the vault is obviously wet in this picture. You can go on to the next photo. The vault contains one submersible well pump, which is what is shown in this photo here. It is installed in a well casing that's connected to the water main. And then on the next photo, you'll see the 2 pressure tanks. And then there's a pressure gauge there that controls the well on off. There is also a small sump in the vault with a gravity drain pipe that daylights out to the east to the existing drainage swale by the road. On the next photo, you can see how it's located here. This is taken from the road. The parcel the pump station is located on is approximately 280 square feet. There are 4 to 5 large trees that surround the pump station. And in this photo, I don't know if you can see it, but the green roof on the structure is actually slightly bent because the tree is growing into it. So those trees are right up against the structure. And this photo shows you the scale of those trees. They are large trees. The next photo, this is the roadside drainage swale. And that's actually my car in the photo. So that's how we park when we go visit the pump station. There is no driveway or parking for it. The operators park in the road. There is no shoulder on this road, so they do actually have to park in the travel lane. You can go to the next photo. The new parcel that the town purchased for the new pump station is approximately 1/4 acre. It's the next parcel south of the existing pump station, and in the photo you can see the pump station on the right, and then you can see that house up on the hill there. So the parcel they purchased, the town purchased, goes up the bank from the road, and then it kind of levels out. It's more gently sloped up there, and it is a Class 3 wetland. This parcel was part of the subdivision for the residential development in the area, but it was never developed. So for project need, the Drinking Water Division performs inspections of the water systems every 3 years throughout the state. In 2018, the division identified deficiencies at the Signal Hill Pump Station and requested the Water Department perform an evaluation of the station, including a recommendation to resolve all deficiencies. My company, Dufresne Group, performed this evaluation, and we identified several instances where the station is not in compliance with the water supply rule, which is the governing regulation for all public water systems in the state. So there's a few things that the water supply rule requires. Accessibility, the rule requires the pump station be readily accessible at all times, graded around the stations so as to lead surface drainage away from the station, and protected to prevent vandalism and entrance by animals or unauthorized persons. So the existing pump station is not readily accessible, as we need to dismantle the roof to get into it. Portions of it are embedded in the adjacent trees. The grading does not lead surface drainage away from the station, and the station also shows significant signs of rodent activity. So it is not animal proof. The building, for the building, the rule requires adequate space for installation of additional pumps and safe servicing of equipment. It needs to be of durable construction, fire and weather resistant with outward opening doors, and have a floor elevation at least 6 inches above finished grade. The building also is required to be heated for safe and efficient operation of equipment, ventilated in accordance with building codes, and have dehumidification for safety, and be adequately lighted throughout. So the existing station, we have no room for any more pumps in it. It is very tight and it barely fits what's in there. It does not allow for safe or efficient servicing of equipment, as it is difficult to access. The existing station is not weather resistant, as evidenced by the water in the bottom of the structure, the wet floor. It doesn't have any doors. It's the finished floor is not 6 inches above grade, as it is partially buried. And it doesn't have any heat, ventilation, dehumidification, or lighting. As for pumps, the rule requires that we have at least 2 pumps in every pump station, and that maximum day demand be met with 1 pump out of service. The rule also recommends that peak demand be met with 1 pump out of service. And requires that pump stations have water meters. So this pump station has 1 pump, does not provide the required redundancy, and there is no meter in the pump station. For controls, this is an automatically controlled station. It runs on its own. And these types of stations are required to have automatic alarms for when the pump is out of service. There are no alarms in this station, and the water department is notified of outages when customers call to report that there's no water. For appurtenances, the rule requires standby power unless a tank is available to provide continued water service during power outages, and we have no standby power at the station either. In April of this year, the Drinking Water Division performed another inspection, as it happens every 3 years. And this time they listed the Signal Hill Pump Station as a significant deficiency and required replacement of the station by September 3rd of this year. We have already requested an extension on that schedule due to significant procurement delays in the water industry, and have committed to replacing the station in either this fall or next spring, depending on procurement availability of materials. If the station is not replaced in 2022, the state may initiate enforcement action. So what we have proposed, if you want to go to the next photo, this is an example. This is not the exact building that we'll be getting. The proposed project includes a new prefabricated building, approximately 10.5 feet wide and 30 feet long. The new building will have vinyl siding and a metal roof, both of natural colors. Access will be provided by the double doors on the east side of the building. The double doors allow for tools and equipment to be brought into the building for maintenance. There will be no equipment mounted on the exterior of the building, with the exception of an electrical meter and 2 vents, one for intake and one for exhaust for the ventilation, and a single exterior light over the door, which will be LED, downcast, and motion activated. The proposed building is sized based on the requirements of the water supply rule and hydraulic calculations for pump sizing. The station will include 5 pumps, 3 5-horsepower power pumps, and 2 40-horsepower pumps. The existing station currently serves 14 residential customers. The new pump station will continue to serve these customers, as well as provide fire protection to the boosted zone via the hydrants. There's an existing hydrant on Guilford Street, just south of the pump station, that will be reconnected to the boosted zone. And then we'll be adding hydrants at the intersection of Hillcrest and Guilford and at the intersection of Signal Hill and Hillcrest. So providing fire protection in that area, which is not currently provided. Additionally, we are sizing the pump station to accommodate future water service connections So these three demand situations that we're sizing for create a variety of flows. The flows that we're sizing for range from 7 gallons a minute to 590 gallons a minute. And that's why we have so many different pumps. We're trying to accommodate the low flows of the existing customers and then the high flows of a fire flow demand concurrent with residential use. And I think it's important to note that the water department has received multiple requests for connections in this area, but they don't have the capacity right now in the existing station to allow any additional connections. The new pump station is also going to provide service to, I believe it's 379 Guilford Street. It's the property just to the north of the existing pump station. That property is connected to the water system. However, the pressure there are questionable in terms of the regulations under the water supply rule. And with the increased fire flow in the area with the new pump station, the pressure will drop even more. So we're going to connect the property to the north of the existing pump station to the boosted side of the new pump station. So that will result in an increase in pressure at that location. And then we're also going to be providing future water service stubs to all properties within the extent of our water main replacement and extension area. So from the pump station south on Guilford Street to Hillcrest, up Hillcrest to Signal Hill. So anybody in that area who is not connected to the water system will be getting a water service stub to the right-of-way that they can connect to in the future if they desire. The next photo. So this is our site plan. And for the building, the water department is requesting a front setback waiver in order to minimize impacts to the class 3 wetland. So on this site plan, north is up. So Guilford Street runs north-south, and the pump station is on the west side of Guilford Street. The total proposed impact to the wetland is 555 square feet, which is mostly site grading impacts. Of the total impact, 63 square feet will be replaced by impervious area, which is mostly the west end of the driveway. There's a kind of a triangle on the west end of the driveway that is currently wetlands. The building, the new building is going to be located approximately 50 feet south of the existing structure. The existing structure is 6 feet off the front parcel line. The new building will be 4.9 feet from the front parcel boundary on the north end and 8.7 feet on the south end of the building. The site layout also includes a 10-foot wide paved driveway, which is typical for these types of projects. This width allows for improved access for maintenance equipment and trucks for the pumps and generator maintenance and service. The driveway does flare out at the road with a 10-foot radius on each side. This allows for a turning radius into the driveway without the trucks having to pull into the other lane to turn. So this results in 29 feet wide at the road, which then tapers back within the right-of-way to 10-foot wide. There is a steep slope coming up from the road. It is going to be about 16.5% from the road up to the parking space. So normally we wouldn't use such a steep slope. However, in this case, we are trying to make significant efforts to minimize the impacts to the wetland. And by minimizing significant grading to lower the site, we can minimize the impact to the wetland. So the driveway actually will slope away from the road for a short distance as per the VTrans driveway standards, and then up the steep hill to a gently sloping parking space. The parking space will be 2%, sloping west to east. The driveway provides for one parking space at the top of the hill. And the reason for the parking space on the flat area is that equipment and trucks cannot easily park on a 16% slope, and it would be difficult for the workers to access tools and materials from the vehicles on that steep slope. The total length of the driveway from the edge of the road pavement to the far west end is 36 feet. There was some consideration to gravel or grass paver driveway surface, but these materials would require increased maintenance and would not adequately support heavy equipment in the event of generator or pump repairs. The driveway will be constructed with a culvert to maintain the existing drainage swale along Guilford Street. There is also going to be a 5-foot wide asphalt walkway from the driveway to the building. This walkway prevents the creation of a dirt footpath, which could lead to erosion on the site. The walkway is in compliance with ADA and V-Trans standards for sidewalks. So under ADA guidelines, the walkway actually could be as narrow as 3 feet. However, we designed it for 5 feet to allow for additional space for operators to walk while carrying tools and equipment. Additionally, they might need to use a cart or a wagon to bring in heavier materials or tools into the station. The generator is proposed on the north side of the building. It's between the, it's actually where the walkway kind of juts around towards the east side of the building. The generator is that smaller rectangle right there. This location allows for access for maintenance and service. We will be providing a sound attenuation enclosure. We are requesting a noise waiver for the generator. We provided with the supplemental information submitted in the application, a generator spec sheet showing the noise level. So with the attenuation enclosure, the noise level is estimated to be 58 decibels at the house. So this would be at 379 Guilford Street. This would be at the closest corner of the house from the generator. And at the property line for 379 Guilford Street, it would be 66 decibels. The noise levels for the property across the street to the east, which is 390 Guilford Street, will be slightly lower. There's a slightly more distance there. The generator will run weekly for a test, which is scheduled for 10 a.m. on Tuesdays. It lasts approximately 20 minutes. That schedule is the same for all of the town's generators that are located in residential areas. They all run at that same time. The only other time the generator will operate is during a power outage in order to provide continued water service to customers. There are similar generators at the multiple other pump stations the town owns located in residential areas. The site is graded to drain into the existing roadside drainage swale. So the entire site grades to the east. So from the west side of the building, there is a proposed swale that will run north-south to drain from behind the building and the west side of our site. It'll drain partially to the north, partially to the south, around the building and around the north side of the driveway and down into the existing drainage swale. On the next photo, that is the landscaping plan. So this was submitted last week. The water department is requesting a waiver on the density of plantings for the vegetated buffer due to the limited space as a result of the front setback waiver. So the landscape plan does show the types and densities of plantings proposed. There are 3 separate areas proposed for screenings as shown on the plan. So one of them, so on this plan, north-south is, or north is to the left of the plan. So on the left side of the plan, there is an area there along the driveway that is proposed for screening for plantings. And then in the square created between the driveway and the walkway, that's another planting area proposed. And then to the south of the walkway, so to the right of the end of the walkway, is a 3rd area. The area to the south and to the west of the building is going to be a 3-to-1 slope, and that will be seeded with wetland seed mix. And then we are not proposing any plantings in the wetland, just to avoid any further impact to undisturbed areas of the wetland. So that's what I have for the summary, and I will ask the board how you want to handle the comments that have already been received.
I'm going to ask whether any members of the board have any questions about your presentation first. Michael?
Yeah. Could you describe to me what this Class 3 wetland is? I mean, I know that, I looked it up on the maps, and the state doesn't account for any of this stuff. I guess they go to Class 2 wetlands. They think that's significant, but Town of Brattleboro does take into account Class 3 wetlands. Could you explain to me what this particular wetland entails?
Sure, this wetland is, so the state does not have jurisdiction over Class 3 wetlands. Army Corps does, but Army Corps allows a certain amount, I believe it's 1,500 feet, square feet of impact before they get involved. So what we have here is a small wetland. The parcel is a 1/4 acre. The wetland does kind of spill off the parcel a little bit to the north. But I would say the wetland is probably more like 0.15 acres. And I think it used to be mowed, and that stopped a while back. And so we have wetland plantings growing up now. And we did have the state, so we had it delineated by a wetland specialist, and we had the state come down and concur with the delineation. And so the state concurred with the Class 3 classification. So basically it's a very small wetland. It is not connected directly to surface waters. And it is not contiguous to any larger wetland. It's an isolated wetland.
I guess I'm still kind of looking for an answer to what does this particular wetland entail? Why is it a wetland, other than people point at it and say, yeah. I mean, I went and looked at it, and it's a hillside. It's not like a bog. It's not like anything like that. It's it's a hillside.
Sure. So for a wetland to be classified as a wetland, or for any land to be classified as a
This
wetland,
one is what
it needs to have 3 things. So one is it has to have hydric soils. So the wetland specialist actually did some small cores to determine the soils. It needs to have water, so a high water table. It's just wetlands are usually just generally wet areas. So high water table, and it also has to have wetland type plants. So those are the 3 things that are needed to classify land as a wetland. And this site has all 3 of those.
Okay, because it doesn't show up on the state site as being hydric soil at all.
No, they don't have, especially small areas like this, the soils mapping isn't very accurate.
So
Go ahead.
primarily because it has plants on it that are considered wetland plants.
Yes.
Am I out of order?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Are there any other questions from members of the board? Catherine or Dan?
I'm having a hard time picking up what people are saying. It seems to break up. I guess I'll just have to read the minutes.
You could-
Was that Mike?
Your-
Didn't Mike just ask questions?
Yes.
Well, he was not coming through it
Well,
that
he
well.
he
At
can't
my
get-
end, anyway. Maybe
He can't get his microphone close enough, I think.
Probably.
I'll try to lean a little bit closer. Catherine, I was just asking why this was in fact a wetland. Can you hear that any better?
I got Chrissy's explanation. I figured that out. Anyway, yeah, I'm here. I have no questions for her.
Dan?
Yes, I just wanted to ask if there were alternatives considered that for site plans that would give you
a slightly larger setback that could be achieved in some way?
Sure, we did look very carefully at the site and how to accommodate the building that we needed, and then the driveway for access. And it's something we talked with Brian very early on in our design process to see what the zoning might favor, being, between minimizing the front setback and minimizing the wetland impact. So we have the wetland to the west and the setbacks to the east. And so after talking with Brian, he felt that the wetland might be more important to the town. So we minimized the impact to the wetland and pushed the building closer to the setback, or to the property line.
Go on.
I don't know.
Did you have anything? One of the things that one of the abutters said, I can't remember which one, was why demolish the existing pump house? Why can't it just be decommissioned and just left?
Sure, so we have, just looking for okay, here it is. On our sheet C1 of the plans, there are some demolition notes in the upper right corner. So the proposal is not to completely demolish and remove that existing pump station. And that's because of the existing trees around it. We don't want to lose those large mature trees. So what our proposal is we're going to remove the roof off of the structure. We're going to take the internal components out of it. We're going to cap the pipes. The water lines going in and out will actually be capped in multiple places. But so we'll cap all of that off, and we're going to try and remove the concrete blocks to below grade, to 1 foot below grade. However, there's a note on the plans. It is note number 5 under demolition notes, that if the contractor cannot do that without damaging the trees, then they are to notify us, and our alternative would be to leave the blocks in place so that we don't damage the trees. And either way, whether we can bring it below grade or if we have to leave the blocks, the structure itself will be filled with material and restored with grass surface. So hopefully we can get it below grade so there's no concrete sticking up. But if we can't without damaging those trees, we're just going to leave it.
Thank you. Members of the board have any other questions?
Yeah, I guess I'm still a little concerned about this. It seems as if we're, taking it seems as if we're, everything about this project needs a variance, both being on the setback in the class 2, in the setback, in the wetland, too close to the road. I guess the only thing it doesn't need a variance for is too close to the side boundaries.
Yeah, so this is a community facility, and while it should meet all our standards to the extent feasible, it's not required to if it's functionally not possible to do so. So they're not really asking for any waivers, and they're not asking for any variances. They're just asking that the design be functional and that wherever necessary, they don't have to meet standards that would impinge on functionality.
I'm not understanding that.
Under state statute, community facilities don't need to meet standards if it affects their functionality.
You got that?
No.
I think what Brian is trying to say is that even though it's worded that they want a waiver, we don't actually grant a waiver because they're not required to meet the same standards because they're a community facility.
Yeah, thanks, Myra. That is what I was trying to get across. Procedurally, we're not doing variances or waivers. It's,
So all we're doing is approving or not approving the site plan. Does that make sense?
It doesn't seem to go along with your initial statement of the town being a party, being
No, but it's a
an
community.
applicant to a,
Yeah, but it's because it's a community facility.
it's a specific exemption under state law. So there are limitations on what local regulations can actually do. So they can't do anything to community facilities that would interfere with their function. To the extent they don't interfere with the function, then the local regulations can be in effect.
Does that make sense now? Kind of.
not particular.
So what's happening is we're running into the state regs. And the state regs require certain things in the pumping station. Right?
Right.
Which have to be,
But we bought this, the town bought this land for the pumping station, knowing that it was a wetland.
that's true.
I think that was preferable to condemning other land that wasn't a wetland. It had to be in the general facility, and being able to just buy something without condemnation.
People
straightforward.
ask for variances and that kind of stuff all the time.
We
and
don't,
I
we
like
don't do
to.
variances. We
Well-
only do waivers.
Pardon me?
We don't do variances.
Okay,
Waivers.
waiver, sorry. And it just is,
Yeah, more typically, that limitation on local effects, they just say that localities just can't regulate something at all. So, like agriculture or forestry, we're limited from regulating that, and we just can't touch it, period. So this is unusual, where our regulatory power is limited, but we are actually still allowed to exercise it.
okay.
What? Is it in the beginning? What page? Right.
I have a question for Christie.
Yep.
What is the time frame of when the transfer of, would affect the water being pumped to the existing homes that it's already doing right now? Is there gonna be a lull or
So we are going to leave the existing pump station operational during construction of the new pump station. Once the new pump station is in place and tested and ready to go, we'll switch over to the new pump station. There'll be maybe a partial day or a day. Usually we try to do it within 4 hours, so that there would be no more than a 4-hour shutdown of the water system. Switch over, and then the water would be pumping through the new station. And the only other interruption would be is connecting the water services to each property. So that would be a short interruption, usually an hour or so for that.
Thank you.
Do members of the board have any other questions? Catherine, do you have anything else right now? Do you
No.
have- No? Okay.
No.
Are there members of the public who would like to speak? And before I call on you, let me just tell you that we have read your extensive memos and emails, and I don't know you'd like to add anything, but you need to go to the microphone and introduce yourself and give your address, and we'll take your testimony.
Okay. My name is Richard Zucker. I own the property at 390 Guilford Street, which is right across the street from the station, pumping station that we're talking about. And I did submit an email with some questions and concerns about this. But before I get started on that, I just wanted to take a second. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. You had asked about the wetlands.
Michael.
Michael, sorry. So I'm not an engineer. I'm not a professional. Generally, there are probably a lot of properties around that could be permitted or zoned as a wetland. Wetland has to have certain natural vegetation, soil drainage, other qualities to it. That isn't the importance of zoning something as a wetland. If it has those properties to it, it has tendency to invite the regional population of different types of animals into it to create a community, a living community within it. Much better example is the wetlands further down Guilford as we get closer to Guilford Street Extension. I'm sure everybody's familiar with that. On the left-hand side as you're heading out at Guilford to the Guilford Street Extension where it goes down to Guilford. In that wetlands, there are blue heron, beavers, porcupine, bear. I spend a lot of time there with my daughter. My daughter lives in the house at 390 Guilford Street. She's lived there most of her adult life. The quietness of it is very important to her. I don't want to go into details about that, but she lives there alone. She spends a lot of time outdoors gardening. And what she experiences looking across the street is the mix of wildlife, the bird population that's attracted to our property. In the summary that was done by the town, there's a sentence that says, the new building will be an aesthetic improvement over the existing station. That would only be if you really found industrial buildings very attractive, because essentially there's nothing there now. When we look outside, we see nothing. We see sometimes in the winter, we'll see the roof, the green roof of the building. It's only sitting 6 inches above the ground, or maybe it's actually a foot, but depending on the vegetation growth that surrounds it, it's really not visible at all. So it's not obtrusive to any of the natural vegetation that's growing, and certainly not to the wildlife that's there. So there's no lighting and there's no sound that comes to it. From time to time, the town does visit to service it. They're very efficient. We have a great town works program and people running it. Can't complain about that. So our concern is not that this is going in, although I didn't understand that the pump just serviced 14 families up on the hill. I thought it really serviced many more, a larger population. So, it just dawned on me the cost of roughly $1 million to do this, to service the 14 families up on the hill. Is this the best solution? That's probably a different topic and too late to go there. What I do want to talk about is actually the impact to the surrounding properties. Another neighbor of mine is here who's right adjacent to it, and she could talk to her issues. They're kind of similar. I just want to make sure, because it seemed kind of cavalier that the sentence said that the new building would be an aesthetic improvement. I mean, I used to live in South Dakota in the Black Mountains, so some people might say that Mount Rushmore was a great improvement on the Black Hills. But depending on who you talk to that precedes that, I don't think, I'm not that old, I don't precede it. But it's just an example. So what we are talking about is more of something that looks like an industrial building. The other pump station that's there now, if you hunt for it and you see it, it'll look like a historic artifact, something from an old well that's left, kind of quaint. I go running down the street, I bicycle, my house is right up the hill. This is also my house at 390 Guilford, but like I said, it's my daughter's house. She's lived there most of her adult life. But we all are right there looking at it. I do a lot of gardening with my daughter right in front of the house and in the rear of her house. And we're just concerned about the lighting isn't, what kind of lighting is going to be outside. What really concerned me is the noise from the generator, asking for a variance to have a slightly louder allowable limit. My daughter's pretty sensitive to noises. And I'm not suggesting that the decision should just be based on the needs of one family. I know it has to be a community decision. Also, it's the first time I heard that the pumping station will improve fire protection. I think that's great. So I don't have a problem with the building. I just want to make sure that it's not a second thought to look at the different issues that might improve the aesthetics and the experience of the surrounding neighbors that live next to the building. I just want to make sure the town does the best job it can.
Thank you.
Okay.
Chrissy, do you want to respond?
I'll just make a couple quick comments. The aesthetic improvement was in relation to the existing building, the existing structure. It's not a building, really. The pictures I have of the interior are not great. The exterior is not in good condition. So while it is pretty minimal, it's not a pretty structure at all, and inside is even worse. So this will look more like I know it doesn't have any windows on it, but it looks more like a house. It's got vinyl siding and a roof. So that was what that was in reference to. And then for the lighting, as I noted before, it's just the one light over the door. It is motion activated. It is downcast, so it should be pretty minimal. I did just check on the lumens of it, and it looks like they're proposing an 18-watt LED, which is equivalent to about 1,100 lumens. So it should be fairly minimal. And then on the generator, again, we have sound attenuation structure around it. And so that's fairly typical of generators in residential areas.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask one more question?
You need to go to the mic.
I just want to know, is it possible to get more of a design drawing? I saw the landscape plan, but that really doesn't tell us much about what it's going to look like. Is it possible to get some, like a landscaper to do a quick design based upon the type of plants you plan to plant and surrounding it, showing the building in place and just whatever landscaping you have maybe developed over the next year or two, just a vision illustration of what it could look like? That would be really helpful, I think, to all the neighbors. And it's not very expensive to have a landscape artist do that.
There is a landscape map. I don't know if you.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. The landscape map really doesn't tell you much in terms of aesthetics. They always look good on paper, but then stuff doesn't grow the way it should, or it's not the right mix. It shows the terrain. Just something that somebody's vision of what this is going to look like when it's finished.
So just really basically, the proposed plantings are about 8 to 10 feet tall. The ones between the street and the building are evergreen hollies, and the ones along the side boundary, they're similar size. They have a nice flower in the springtime, good scent. I think they're relatively fast growing. And then there's also going to be Joe Pye weed, which is an herbaceous plant. It's maybe about this height.
Yeah.
And, it's a native wildlife plant, and that's good for pollinators as well.
Okay, are there any more comments from yes? You need to introduce yourself and say where you live, please.
Sure. My name is Wendy Bayless. I live at 379 Guilford Street. I'm an interested party, and I was very surprised to hear from Chrissy that we have a water flow problem. As the person who does the wash in our house, the dishes, etc. So no one from the water department has surveyed us, or so that's new information. So I have both a couple of questions that came out of Chrissy's presentation and some additional information. So one additional piece of information that I'd like entered into tonight's testimony is a warranty deed between myself and my husband, Eric Pofcher. He's here on the Zoom and can also speak to this, where we, after we bought our house on Guilford Street, we gave to the town the segment around the pump house. We had it surveyed and hired a lawyer. And so this is document number 1215, book number 350, page number 259. I did bring 2 extra copies of it if any of you folks would like it now. And one of the things that, so it describes exactly where the pump house is on our land. So for people who aren't familiar with the map, the pump house was part of 379 Guilford Street, and now there's a little piece carved out that we gave to the town, but our land runs alongside it, next to it, and then back here. So we're the northernmost property that they refer to in several places. One of the places says there's a border now from the northernmost property owners, so we don't have to put in anything else, basically. So it's a little bit confusing to me why that's able to be the case, and the fact that tonight was the first time we heard that apparently if the town is building something, they don't have to ask for a waiver. Although there are, in the document, I counted 3 separate requests for waivers. So I'm just sorry, I'm going to get back to the warranty deed for 1 minute. It says in here, we granted them an easement, a construction easement of 15 feet on the south, west, and north sides of the property to allow the town of Brattleboro necessary room for equipment to be used in the event of repairs, replacements, or upgrades. This easement is temporary, and at the end, it's the intent of the parties, no permanent structure be placed by the grantee, that would be the town, within the easement area, and the grantee will return the easement to its original condition. So I'm a little bit concerned that what they're describing now, will damage that easement area, which is still our land, and that they don't have plans to return it to the original condition. The discussion about seeding that area described grass, and part of what I sent in was measurements for many of the plants that are growing there now. So that's the warranty deed, and as I said, I'm happy to leave you a copy. I had several questions for Chrissy. When she spoke about building for the future, this new structure is not only taller, wider, and longer, but went from 2 pumps, I thought she said, to 5. And so I'm really curious about why, when this is such a small piece of land, there are other pieces of land that the town owns or could buy, why they decided to move ahead with something that seems more than what's needed at this point in time in that specific spot. So I don't know if she responds to that now.
I don't know, is she, Chrissy, do you want to respond, or?
Sure, I can respond as we go.
Okay.
So, just to jump back quick on your first comments, the water flow problem, you don't have one right now. Right now, you currently have about 45 PSI during average day demand. With this pump station providing fire flow to the area, your pressure during a fire flow event would drop to 17 PSI, which is below the regulatory limit. So we can't let you drop that low. And during future demand with a fire flow, it would be 16 PSI. So that's where the issue comes in, and we can't let that happen. On the comment about the small parcel that you had gifted to the town, and it's supposed to return to you afterwards, you noted you were concerned that this project is going to damage that easement. And the new work is all going to occur on the town's property that the town purchased last year. So the only work that will occur on that small parcel with the existing pump station is the abandonment and or demolition of the pump station. And then returning it to its existing condition, that area there is not a wetland. Where the existing pump station is, that is not a delineated wetland. If you'd like the entire pump station removed, we can do that. We would just have to take out all the trees or some of the trees to do it. So it's a matter of saving the trees or getting rid of the whole pump station. So then on to your question of why here and why build for the future. Pump stations need to be located where the hydraulics require them. We can't just put them anywhere. We need to have certain pressures and flows, and elevation is important. Pipe lengths are important. So with the existing pump station being here, we have all of our piping connections here. We can't move any further south on Guilford Street. We don't have the pressures coming from the north to do that. So we physically cannot move this pump station any further south. And then why more than needed is, as I noted, the town has received many requests for connections in this area. And they've had to decline those those requests because they do not have capacity in the existing station. The existing station only has one pump in it. And the transition to 5 pumps is to accommodate low flows of approximately 6 gallons a minute. That's average day demand. Low flow could even be as low as a half a gallon a minute, up to a fire flow demand of over 500 gallons a minute. And so that's why we have this variety of pumps, and there's 5 pumps now, is to handle all these different scenarios of flow. And if we're going to build a station, we want to build it for the long term. We want to build the station for, the next 50 years. We don't want to plan for just 10 or 15 years. So if we're going to put the money into it, we want to make sure that it has the flexibility to accommodate a variety of situations in the future without having to expand the building or have to build a new building. We don't want to do that. So we want to start with a building that is able to accommodate future demand and has the flexibility in pump sizes to do so.
May I ask another question? So I know you said earlier and again now that the town has received many requests for pump town water, but when you describe Signal Hill and Hillcrest and talk about great future demand, are there more house lots there? Where is this water going to be pumped farther up Guilford Street past the turnoff for Montessori School? Where is that building demand coming from? Because that wasn't described in the proposal.
I don't know.
It wasn't in our zoning application. It didn't, I guess it didn't seem like it needed to be, but I believe there are properties on Hillcrest and on Signal Hill that are not connected to the water system right now. And then there are also properties further south on Guilford Street that are not connected to the water system. And I don't know exactly who has been requesting or what areas they're from. But I did talk with Public Works today, and they informed me that there have been requests in that area.
So you're speaking of existing houses, not houses to be built.
I think Steve Barrett might be able to better answer that question. I'm not sure if the people who are requesting are existing houses or if they want to build houses.
Steve's not on, is he? He is. Steve, did you hear the question and can you respond?
I did. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So there's existing homes that are on the water system up there. And then there's other lots, there's other homes that have requested. But when we build a pump station, we have to look at the whole zone. We have a responsibility to look at areas that people haven't asked. And when the question comes up, could people south of this pump station connect? Certainly they could. When the sewer was brought up through there, additional homes were built. Anytime you construct utilities, there's some favorability to connecting to them. We've had a lot of people complain about the water quality of wells up in that area. They're high in iron and manganese, and many people have hoped that we would expand the water system. So this is just the first phase, but we need to look into the future. Utilities in Brattleboro, they're over 100 years old. We have to look out into the future and what might happen. So we're not just talking about today, we're trying to look at the future. It's very similar to Algiers when we built the pump station for Omega. Then the whole village of Algiers connected to the water system. So that's what we're looking at. We're just looking at the future.
Thank you.
Okay, can I ask a couple more questions? So my concern was, I don't want to deny anyone water, but my concern was that there's still unquantified numbers. One neighbor from Hillcrest told me that they were interested in connecting to town water, but in her words, it was a hefty fee to connect. So it seems like there's another piece of that we're not even acquainted with. So it's still not clear to me, Chrissy said, they can't go south of that and still have the pressure to pump, and yet what Mr. Barrett just seemed to be talking about was going considerably south of that.
I believe he was speaking of the pumping, she was speaking of the pumping station, not the fact that houses south can be connected. Can you correct me if I'm wrong, Chrissy?
You are correct. I was indicating that the pump station itself could not be located any further south because we wouldn't have the pressure on the suction side of the pump station to operate a pump station. Steve is talking about providing water on the boosted side of the pump station further south.
So if it's possible to provide a boost at that location, would it not be possible to provide a boost at another location if you built in another spot?
I think there's a difference between providing water and water pressure and having the main pumping station at a place where it's most efficient, okay? So
Okay.
I'm not an engineer. We have an engineer here.
Okay.
Am I right?
It's all relative.
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Okay, I want to appreciate everyone's time, but I do have a couple more questions. With this description of the driveway and the walkway, the proposal says a 10-foot wide driveway, but didn't list a length. So this is the first time we're hearing about the length. In the proposal, it says for one car or one vehicle to park. So 36 feet is pretty long for one vehicle. That adds another 360 square feet of paved surface. And throughout the proposal, there are references to maintaining the paved surface as small as possible. So I'm still not certain as to why it has to be that long. And I did hear the driveway will go down into the swale from the road and then up almost immediately. For people who've made a site visit, you may be wondering how a truck will actually do that, and then level out. So I would ask if they can reconsider the length of that driveway. And also the width of the paved pathway, to say that it will be 5 feet rather than the regulated 3, because at the beginning they may be carrying in tools or pulling a wagon, just seems a little, I'd like more explanation of that.
We will take that into consideration in our deliberations.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And do I pass this in to someone here?
You can give that to Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, board. Thank you, Chrissy and Steve.
I was hoping to speak. My name's Andrea Watkins.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry.
I'm not sure if there's anyone else who wants to speak on Zoom, but it wasn't clear to me how to raise my hand. That icon's not available
I'm sorry.
on this Zoom call.
Yeah, we've got somebody monitoring, so they just told me that you wanted to comment, so.
Okay, great. So am I recognized?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. My name's Andrea Watkins. I live in a different section of Brattleboro, but I have friends and acquaintances that live in this neighborhood. And while I'm sure they all want good quality water to their house, I don't feel that the proposed structure fits into the bucolic character of the neighborhood, as some of the neighbors have spoken to. And I do want to point out that Ms. Haskins didn't show you any pictures that showed the property just to the north of this site. So you may not be realizing quite how close to that property this structure really would be. The proposed structure strikes me as the equivalent of a large vinyl clad shed or tiny house, but out where the sidewalk would be. And I understand the constraints of the wetlands, but I don't feel like trying to make this structure look like a house out on the sidewalk is the best approach. I think the town, just like the firehouse projects, where there was really first time out of the gate, there was lots of opportunity to improve the aesthetics to fit the character of the neighborhood. That this project also has that ability that I'd encourage the town and the engineering firm to look at examples the way national parks try to blend a structure into the natural environment as opposed to making it stand out as a quasi house in this area.
Thank you.
They could, in particular, I would suggest that you look at, since the existing structure is bermed, that there's been huge improvements in earth berming technology, that you could look at it berming this structure into the hillside to make it blend better. I would also, I think this site is really pretty complicated due to the topography. And so I would encourage the Development Review Board to take time and do a site visit so you can really understand the implication of the structure as proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other people on Zoom that want to comment? Steve, you got anybody?
Don't believe so.
No? Okay, I will ask the board how you wish to proceed. If somebody would like to go into deliberative session, it will not be tonight, it will be at a different day that's convenient. Or are people ready to vote?
I can vote.
And vote?
Yeah.
You can vote?
I can vote.
Okay. Catherine and Dan, how do you feel? Do you want to go, do you think we need to talk some more, or are you ready to vote?
If I can ask a question,
Sure.
I actually am fairly familiar with the area, and I did do an extra site visit myself, just since it was brought up a few times. I'm just curious if we could all publicly state if other DRB members have made an attempt to understand the site, either by a site visit or asking neighbors, et cetera. I'm just curious, and I'm just wondering if we can state that as a response to the request that we do a site visit.
Yeah. You did a site visit.
I have.
I live on Hillcrest. So.
And
Yeah, that's great. I think it's good for us to say that we actually have done, we've, performed some due diligence in response to the written comments that have been submitted.
I think there was one a long time ago when I first came on to the DRB, so, but not since then, obviously, because I cannot walk it, so. But I've been keeping up with what's been going on.
Thank you. So, Dan, are you and Catherine ready to vote? Are you ready to vote? Or do you want to deliberate some more?
I don't want to speak for Catherine, but I actually would like to deliberate a little bit. It might be just a few minor points, but I may be in the minority there.
Well, if one person wants
I
to
can't hear
deliberate-
Maya. Is Maya speaking?
She was, yeah.
If one
Okay, well, I
person
can't
wants,
hear-
There
I
might
can't
be
hear
a
anybody.
there might be a microphone issue, Maya. If you could maybe get the microphone that the commenters were using.
no, I'm not gonna go stand at a mic. BCTV's playing with my mic. So, we can certainly talk some more if you would like to. Do you want to do that tonight?
I'm available to do that if necessary.
Okay. Catherine, can you hear me now?
I can hear you this moment, but couldn't hear what you said to Dan.
Do you want to deliberate? Do you want to go into deliberative session? Do you want to talk some more tonight? Or are you ready to vote?
Okay. To your question, I am right now battling a really, really severe sciatica, so I'm having a tough time sitting here. I really feel like I've heard enough, and yes, I could go into deliberation. I mean, to vote.
And to vote. Okay, Dan, why don't you ask your questions? Or make your comments?
Sure, that's exactly what it would be. It really would be a comment. I think there's a context or a subtext to this, the comments that have been given by abutters and members of the community that I think is addressed in one of the letters I believe that Wendy submitted, and thank you for submitting that, which is essentially that there seems to be it seems to be that there was a fait accompli or a sort of a pre decision made when the property was purchased, and I think it would be good for someone to to clear the record. Obviously the property was purchased last year, and if there's been planning that had gone on in some way related to that purchase of the property, that could be just clear the air about that, just sort of made plain, because that seems to me to be the sort of subtext to this, the comments that we've received, what was going on with the purchase of the property. And I don't know who can address that, but that seems to be the bone of contention, if you will. If anyone could comment on that, sort of the trajectory or the thinking that went into purchasing the property in the first place.
Steve, can you do that?
Yes, I can. So Harvey LaFountain originally owned the house and all the property around his house that was at the intersection of Signal Hill and Hillcrest. He subdivided the parcel and they became building lots. And one of the houses up on Hillcrest was built upon. So for me as a director of public works, when I started being put on notice that we had to replace the pump station at Signal Hill, and that started a few years ago, It just seemed logical to me. I felt in simplicity, and I guess maybe it shouldn't be that simple, that if someone could build a house there, then we could put a pump station on it. So I did a little bit of research, you know, and discussed it with planning and said, look, if we're going to buy this piece of property, you know, by the way, the piece of property had been for sale for a couple of years. So it was on the open market. Anybody could have bought it. So it made sense to me that this was an opportunity for the utilities division, because there's not really any other place that we could build a pump station up on that hill. And this seemed like the prime location. So that's really the backstory behind it. I went to the select board. We did the purchase. You know, it was all transparent, but that's how we got that piece of property.
And then on the planning side, you know, this has been something that's been discussed for several years now, and Ms. Bayless has in fact participated in those discussions for at least 2 years. We did advise the Public Works on natural resource protection concerns, and of course minimizing impacts on the neighborhood. So I think ultimately those were reflected in the current design.
Yes, you need to go to the mic.
Can I ask Christie a question? Am I pronouncing your name properly? Didn't you mention the fact that the new station would also offer something that they hadn't had before, and that was fire protection?
That is correct. The current station does not provide fire protection, and there are no hydrants up on Hillcrest or Signal Hill. The new station will provide fire protection.
Thank you. I wanted you to reiterate that. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Bayless?
I wanted to clarify something when Mr. Bannon just said that, I believe he said, I participated in these discussions for the past 2 years. When that lot was divided before the yellow house, I think it's 27 Hillcrest was built, the person living in the gray house said that they had gotten permission to subdivide because they were giving a right-of-way for the pipe to the water department, so that they were able to create more building lots than would otherwise have been on that space. And perhaps that was part of the original thinking. And when I first learned about this, when there was from the environmental scientist who was at the lot surveying, I actually went out to invite her to park in our driveway because it was at a time when Hilltop School had a lot of traffic. And so she told me that a pump house was going to be built 20 feet by 20 feet with 2 buried liquid propane tanks, which haven't even been brought up into tonight's issue. And that she thought it was already a done deal. And at that point, I contacted Mr. Barrett. I still have the copy of the email that I sent to him asking about land regulations, and I still have his 2-sentence response. When I have a concept proposal, I'll show you. I'll abide by all land use regulations, and I'm happy to send that too. But it certainly wasn't participation in the process. And a couple of months ago, I called the department and spoke with Sue Fillion. I sat in on a DRB meeting, a planning commission meeting, and a select board meeting, as I mentioned in my letter, to find out how to have some role in what happens. And Sue Fillion very graciously agreed to have a phone conversation with me and spent quite a bit of time telling me what would happen and asking me questions. At no point then did anyone tell me how to get documents to the DRB, or even that I could, or who to contact. And even when we got our letter as abutters, it simply said, you must show up here and speak now or forever hold your peace. It didn't say in that letter anything about any method to distribute materials or information or photos to people. So I would have liked to participate more, but I don't feel that that option was offered. Thank you.
Dan, do you have any other questions?
Well, I think it would be useful if we all did make a site visit as has been suggested, but in lieu of that, if we could state if any of us have
Well, I think
You
we
know,
already did that.
attempted to do
And-
that, yeah.
And you have, and Nora has, and I have, and Michael has.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Okay.
So the majority of the board has actually done a site visit. Okay. Now, are people ready to vote, or is there a motion to go into deliberative session? If we go into deliberative session, it will not be tonight.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we go into deliberative session.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second that we go into deliberative session at a time and date to be determined. I guess, Steve, you're going to be running the deliberative session, is that correct?
Maya, did we take a vote on that second?
No, I'm just clarifying that it will be at a date and time to be determined.
No, I'm saying, did we vote on that motion?
No, we have not yet.
All right.
I'm just saying, adding to the motion, that we will enter into deliberative session at a date and time to be determined. And I was trying to ascertain who from the planning staff was going to be working with us. And it'll be Stephen. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn into deliberative session at a date and time to be determined. Can I have a vote, please? John?
Aye.
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 Dan?
Aye.
Catherine?
No.
Okay. Did you get that for the minutes? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we will be making a decision soon, but it will not be tonight.
I just wanted to ask a question about your process, not about this issue. Go to Mike. When you just asked to take a vote, if you took a vote on this issue and it was voted in the affirmative, does that mean the project as it stands, no further consideration is approved, and that's what you go ahead with?
No, we took a vote to go into what's called deliberative session, where the board will discuss all the issues that have been raised and take a vote.
Yes, I understand that. So what I was asking is when you say, and then take a vote, it's at that vote, if it's affirmative, to move ahead with the project as is,
Yes.
no other consideration?
Well, we can put conditions.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
We don't have to approve it as is, we can add conditions. Okay? Okay. The next item on the agenda is 2021-84. Is Mr. McKay still with us? Thank you. Mr. McKay?
Is he still on?
I've asked him to unmute. I believe he's the phone number.
Can you try to chat?
Thank you. As I understand it, he's gonna ask for continuance. Mr. McKay is gonna ask for a continuance if he comes on. Is he there?
I've sent a chat and I've asked him to unmute himself. he has yet to respond.
There we go, there we go. Hello,
Hello?
can you hear me all right?
Yes. So, would you, it's my understanding that you, would like a continuance?
I would love to be present for next meeting if that's possible, yes.
Okay, the board will need to vote whether to grant you a continuance or not.
Okay,
And can you tell us why you're requesting a continuance?
mainly because I'd like to be there to do this myself in person.
Okay, did you know that the meeting was scheduled and you were on the agenda for tonight?
I did, and I sent a letter saying I'd be out of town, which I am. That's why I'm asking if I could possibly come next month and do it on my own, represent myself.
Okay,
If I could, it's an appeal of my decision. I'd just like to say that at this point, the RVs are already on site. There might be some health and safety concerns with that, but I don't think they're
Yeah.
going to be resolved quickly regardless of how the board acts. And I think this matter is going to probably not be
I can't hear
finally-
what you're saying, Brian.
Sure. So this is an appeal of my decision. I think this matter is going to extend probably through the summer before it's fully resolved, because there are a number of families living on the parcel now, and I think they may have difficulty finding safer spaces to live. So I do not think that it will matter if it is continued for another month.
does anybody else on the board have any opinion?
Are there any rules allowing applicants for continuance?
Yes, you can request one,
Is this the first request?
yes. Yeah. Yeah, we don't have to grant more than one continuance.
We don't have to grant even
And we
one.
don't have to grant one if we don't choose to do so. Anybody have any comments, any questions? Anything you want to ask Mr. McKay before we vote? No? Nobody has anything? Catherine, did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Can I have a motion to grant Mr. McKay a continuance till August 18th?
I will make a motion that we grant him the continuance to the next DRB meeting, August
18th.
Sorry.
18th.
18th.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we grant Mr. McKay a continuance to August 18th. I'll poll the board. John?
Nay.
Yes.
No.
No,
Dan?
I,
Catherine?
Oh, yes.
So that was 1, 2, 3.
3 to 3.
It's a tie.
oh dear.
So
You need a majority of the board to pass
to
something.
pass
so-
something, yes, so we only had 3 people. We don't have a majority. So, your continuance has not been granted. And, I'm not sure how we proceed now that we haven't granted the continuance. We can discuss the substance of his?
Yes. Mr. McKay has submitted an application, Form J, explaining his reasons for the appeal. And I have submitted a memo,
Yes.
which you should all have. And you can ask any clarifying questions of either of us.
Okay. My question is, and the reason why I voted no, is that it's my understanding that permission was granted to place some RVs at the site during the construction of the I-91 bridge. And as far as I know, the construction has been long completed, and I don't believe that there was any request to continue to have RVs at that site, and I do not believe that a request was made, and permission was not granted. And that's why I did not vote for the continuance, and I believe that the RVs should be moved. And that's, I don't know whether any other board members have anything else, or you voted yes. I don't know whether you want to speak to that.
I was just voting yes for the continuance, just because we
Okay.
regularly grant people continuance.
Any other comments from the board? So
Can
now,
I ask a question?
sure.
And I don't know if Mr. McKay can answer this, but is this a housing issue? And as Brian indicated, the usage of these RVs, is it essential?
Just seasonal, that's all. It's not, as you stated earlier, I think the state got a permit for variance, because they were living here year-round for about 3 years. And that's when I purchased this property, and it's my own fault. I guess I should have checked with Brian. I just assumed that's why it had 4 different sites, all set up with water and power. And I just figured it would continue when I bought it. And I'm finding I didn't, and I've been doing this since 2014 when I bought it. It's just in last fall I had asked Mr. Bannon about, he said just come down and give me permits this spring, and I went to get permits, and that's when I got the letter saying I couldn't do this. Unfortunately, I already rented out, by the way, just 3 sites, not 4. I'd rented out two sites for the summer. I don't know where these people would go. I don't think there's any campground open. If there is, I can ask them to leave and go there. But I guess mainly I'd like to keep at least 3 sites there if I could, of the 4 that are there. We're about 72 feet back from the river, and I think the board, Brian said it had to be 100 feet back from the river. That seems to be the only issue, as far as I know, but I'll let you guys discuss that. So I just hope I could keep at least 3 sites there, yes.
Just to reiterate what he stated there, I would agree that there are not alternatives for them to be moved to an acceptable location for housing purposes.
Who is that speaking?
That's Dan.
Dan.
That's me, Dan.
Okay.
I just wanted to reiterate what he seemed to be saying, that there isn't an alternative for a campground or an alternative site.
And the reason I think I know this is I probably better get 4 or 5 calls a week for people. The state is trying to help them buy a motorhome than to come stay there. And I haven't let the sportsman come on because I got the letter from Brian on this. I'm not doing this. That's all we have to say.
So this is Catherine, Mr. McKay, Catherine Turnus. I have a question for you. You stated that this was seasonal. So those RVs are not there the entire year? What are the months that they are there?
They are there.
I'm sorry?
What are the months that they are there? What time frame?
This year, they're only gonna be there from June through September. Normally, we have a 6-month span. We only go there in May, and that's what we've been doing for the last 6 years. We go there in May and move out in October.
So they are there from May and October, then they leave?
Yes, exactly. Just one has a temporary permit.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
I would be willing to say that if we're gonna move in September, that we let people stay there until September, but you cannot rent in future years.
There's no way I could get a variance to have just 3 of them there in the future?
Well,
This is why I wanted to come in and talk to you guys if I could, but if I can, I can't, so.
you could submit an application for a permit.
Well, I pretty much did that already. Mr. Bannon denied it, so.
But I don't think it's a suitable parcel.
Do you folks
We're
want-
about 25 feet off the regulations is what we're doing, so.
So I was talking to the planning director about this morning, and we both agreed that the most sensitive part in resolving this issue was the people living there, and that we would take into consideration their needs and move at a pace to accommodate those needs. This is not something that has to be resolved immediately, and that could have a negative impact on folks, and it's just not necessary. But as far as doing this in future, it's a small site, it has no wastewater facilities, it's all in the riparian buffer. It was allowed to be used as recreational land in the past. It was allowed to be used for 4 RVs during construction because temporary structures are allowed for construction projects. And that permit was conditioned on the RVs being removed at the close of the project and the site being restored. And that was the last permit issue, so if that had been followed, it would just be a restored site with a small driveway. And under our riparian buffer regulations, it can just be used for passive recreation.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
May I ask a clarifying question of Mr. McKay?
Sure.
He mentioned purchasing the property. Would you mind telling us what date you purchased it? I'm sorry, I don't know. Or what, let's just say what month of what year would need to be the date.
I'm sorry. I had on mute.
That's all right. You mentioned earlier that you purchased the property with certain notions of how it might be used. When did you purchase the property approximately?
I believe it was in 2014. I have a letter that I wrote Mr. Bannon about trying to put a house down there, and I got denied on that, and that was it. That's all I'd have to look up. I think it was 2014 when I bought it, yes.
I see. So can I ask another question? So you've made a few attempts to utilize the property, and there have been issues with the town, and this is your request for continuance here is sort of is partly to make your case in person, but also partly to, it seems, extend the current situation to provide housing. Is that correct?
No, it wasn't extended at all. I guess I'm out of town, but
Well, for a month, I mean, it's, yeah.
I'd rather been there in person, but if I'm not, that's fine. No, I've been using it since I bought it. We've had as many as 4 structures down there since 2014. And the last year, Mr. Bannon asked me to make sure I got them off by the time, because we only run seasonal before, and we did that, and that's when I thought I could come in and get permits for just at least 3 of them this spring, but I guess not.
Right, so if I can make a comment to the board, I think that actually makes the case for a continuance, because it seems like we need to gather a little bit more information, and that it would be appropriate for us to have questions for Mr. McKay at our next meeting.
We already voted not to grant the continuance.
Understood. Okay, fair enough. Well, I don't know. Did we vote not to? We tied, right? I guess we didn't.
We didn't get 4 votes,
Sure, understood.
so that's the equivalent of a denial.
Okay.
So, as I said, I think that the RVs can stay there until September, but I don't think that we are. Well, I'm not in favor of allowing future use of the property that's not consistent with the regulations.
Can I get Brian to clarify? We can't to predict the future, what it can be used for. Can't we just deny this period and that's the way it's going to stand? We can't say, oh, it's okay now, but next year you can't do it. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, I just want to, I'm saying I think that it's not okay. I agree with you. But we need to consider the people that are currently living there and thought they were going to be living there till September.
Well,
Catherine, if I could jump in, resolving land use disputes like this, there are always extended processes. If this is resolved by September, that would be a relatively fast resolution. And if that accommodated the people living there now, that's also desirable. So the question really is this a permissible application? Was I right in denying it? And the question of what happens to the folks there now, you know, they're going to be there until the end of summer regardless.
so the people that are there now, when did they arrive? How long have they been there on the land?
Catherine, it's a seasonal use, so they've been there
But
through the
if they're
summer.
going to be there till September, have they already arrived? But he had stated that he jumped ahead and said it was okay for them to be there before this decision was made.
Yes, that's correct.
So, I'm sorry, never mind, because you're going to think I'm really cruel, but I'll tell you, I don't think that's our problem. Our problem is, should they be there or not?
Yes, I think that's correct.
And the question is, are we going to uphold the zoning administrator's determination that it's not a proper use to have recreational vehicles in that property, regardless of the number?
Right.
Or not? And that's the question that we now have to decide.
Well, can we put it up for a vote?
Make a motion.
I make the motion that we support the zoning, person,
Administrator is the word you're looking.
administrator, and his original reason.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that the zoning administrator's decision be upheld. And I will add the condition that the folks can stay there until September, and they need to be moved at the time that their lease agreement or whatever they have it ends.
May I ask a question? I believe he
Sure.
said October rather than September.
He said
Is that correct?
I believe he said September. He said
The end
in-
of September is what I heard.
Yeah,
Yeah, Dan, he meant that it's a regular basis. In other words, in normal, it would be May to October.
Right, that's what I said.
Right, but not right now, no. September.
well, May to October would be the end of September. October 1st is October, right?
Not in terms of lease agreements, by the way, just in case that, if it's October, it's the end of October, just as a
Right.
clarification.
I believe, though, he said September.
Okay. Can we vote?
Okay. I'm going to vote. John?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Dan?
Nay.
Okay. So the zoning administrator's decision has been upheld with the condition that the RVs currently there are moved at the end of the lease, which I believe is September. Okay. Moving on to case 2021-87. And how do you pronounce his name? Belogourfor?
Is Mr. Brattleboro on?
No.
No.
Is somebody there representing Vermont Redevelopment LLC?
Does not appear to.
Is anybody there to present this case, this appeal?
I don't believe so.
What do we do now?
Okay.
You can proceed based on the Form J that he submitted and the memo and any clarifying questions, or you can continue the matter.
So, I had questions, so,
I did too.
I would be interested in continuing, if there's a motion to continue to
I
August
move-
18th.
I move we continue 2021-87 till August 18th.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of continuing? John is a no.
Nay.
Wait, Dan.
Yes.
Yes to continue?
Yeah.
I'm a yes.
I'm a yes.
Dan?
I'd say nay.
Okay. Catherine?
Yes.
Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4 votes to continue. So,
I have a question for Brian. Quickly, if the person doesn't give you notice that they won't be here, isn't there, I don't know, I mean, it seems that they are here to either on Zoom or in person where you are to defend this application, then why should we even bother to continue it?
That's
Just
entirely
the
at your
same-
discretion. When people receive notice of the hearings, the notice states that they must be here or they may lose their opportunity to offer testimony.
Okay,
It's stated clearly and it's their choice.
We appear to have public comment.
Oh,
Yeah, yes. You're muted. Excuse me, you need to unmute.
no, you're still muted.
We can't hear you.
Nope.
Is there video?
Yeah, there's video. She's gonna type a comment.
Maybe try turning off your video and turning on your audio.
did she take the oath?
Yes.
When she commented earlier, audio was indeed working. So I don't believe the problems are on our end. But I'll turn the gain up.
Is she typing a comment? I couldn't read that.
She seems to be having technology problems. But one solution might be to, if it's your internet connection, turn off your video and then unmute yourself.
Did she type a comment?
She said, please continue this application because the applicant may be having technology problems. Should we clarify that she has a relationship as an interested party to the application? Or are you
No,
not interested?
no.
Okay,
We've already, I think we voted to continue.
okay. I wasn't sure if Catherine's vote was
Yeah,
conditional on
Yeah.
her question to Brian.
no. So, that concludes that portion of the agenda. And now we have administrative, matters, and we have to elect, a chair, a vice chair, and a clerk. So I will, take nominations for chair.
I would nominate you.
Second.
Are there any other nominations for chair? Okay, nominations for vice chair. I'll nominate Nora. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? I will accept nominations for clerk. And I will nominate Brian Bannon.
Second.
Okay, so we have 3 nominations for 3 offices, and we can vote as a group to save time rather than to vote on each office. If that's agreeable to everybody?
Well, I think we should vote the slate, how's that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, that's the word I was trying to figure out. Okay, so the nominees are Maya Hasagawa for chair, Nora Dissinger for vice chair, and Brian Bannon for clerk. And I will call the roll. John?
Aye, yes.
Yes.
Aye.
I,
I,
Okay, thank you very much. And this meeting is adjourned. Wait a minute. We need to figure out
the
deliberative session.
um,
Do people prefer that we pick some dates and do an email? Is that the easiest way to do it?
that sounds good to me.
Okay, so we'll do that.
What are we doing?
Deliberative session,
Yeah, but what?
We'll send an email with
float,
some
float
dates
some different dates and
and times.
see what people can
and
do.
We'll see what people want to do.
don't we have to do that within a reasonable amount of time, considering gives them
Yes,
45 days
Yes.
to make an appeal?
yes.
Or that's when I get it?
Yeah, you have 45 days after the close of the hearing to issue your decision, and then after that, it's 30 days for somebody to appeal your decision.
So we have
Right.
not made a decision yet. It's,
Right, so we
So-
should do that as soon as possible?
yes, yeah. We will send out dates that are very soon.
Okay.
Like-
Later this week or next week?
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, later this week, next week is what Michael just suggested. So, okay, now, motion to adjourn.
I'll do that.
I move.
Okay, all in
I
favor?
gotta go, 'cause this is too,
Second.